Morning, guys. Got myself a cup of tea. So we were out last night at the pantomime. It was really good. It was actually brilliant. Someone called Gareth Gates, who was in a program called Pop Idol, um, and in England many years ago, like 20 years ago, um, was the star. Then he had his beautiful girlfriend, who was an amazing singer. Um, it was just a really fun show. You know, you got the wicked stepsisters, the Cinderella thing, and he got buttons. It just was so good. I loved it. I loved it. So everyone went to bed late. I had some chips last night. I shouldn't be eating chips, but I hadn't eaten, so I thought there was some chips. They were, yeah. I broke my carnivore keto diet rule, but today I've got loads of meat, steak, chops, everything, eggs. I'm back. As you can see, I've just woke up, so you can tell. Look at me. But this, I wanted to do a quick video. This video popped up. I've got loads of topics, guys. But because the kids are going to be down in a minute, I thought let's quickly sneak in a chapter. Now, this girl, I really enjoy her reviews. This is her. We've been jumping around on chapters, on all her reading. I don't really want to go from one to the end, next book, one to the end, next book. It's just, I find that boring. I'm just jumping around. I really like this girl. What Now Net? Please subscribe to her. Watch her videos. I just like her very laid back way of reading off a quick chapter. She usually does it quite quickly. So, of course, we're reacting to it. We're reviewing it, critiquing it. We have to, YouTube, make sure that we do, or we get copyrighted. So I think I've got just enough time to listen together with Team Elvis on Ginger Alden's book, Elvis and Ginger, chapter 22. If the kids come down, I'm going to have to suddenly stop. So let's press play and go from there, guys. And good morning to you, and welcome to Team Elvis.
Alden's book, Elvis and Ginger. Ginger says it was the middle of May and Elvis's next tour was quickly approaching, and Elvis seemed anxious as with his previous tours. She says, quote, he started again asking for more medication to help him get back to sleep whenever he woke up. She says Nurse Tish told her that sometimes she would give Elvis placebos.
So, right, I have read this chapter, but I read it a long time ago. It looks like they're going to talk about the prescription medication. Just so you know, guys, there may be some stuff in here that's a bit uncomfortable. Let's just go with it. I may have my own opinions on some of these things. You know how I feel, guys. Elvis was very sick. Yeah, couldn't sleep. Had always had chronic insomnia, in a lot of pain and discomfort, serious stomach problems. So I, when you're in a lot of pain, guys, you turn to your doctor. He gives you lots of pills. You take them because you're desperate. That's how I feel about Elvis when he was over prescribed. Okay. And obviously lack of sleep, overworked, all this kind of stuff. Yeah. Let's keep going.
Which meant Elvis was going to sleep without the help of sleep medication. Ginger says she was glad to hear this and that perhaps his dependence on sleep medication was, quote, all in his head. Ginger noticed that sometimes Elvis stayed awake even after taking a packet, and she couldn't tell if his insomnia was too severe for the medication to work or if he'd been given a placebo. She knew she wasn't qualified to determine the cause. Ginger says she also worried that long.
Well, I mean, that's the point. Obviously, we'll do topics on this, but, a few people have said that he was given placebos, haven't they? Yeah, I've heard Billy Smith say it. I've heard Dr. Nick say it. I've heard a few other people say it as well. Let's keep going.
Long-term use of his medications would be harmful to him. There were times where it was obvious to her that the medication affected his mood and behavior badly. She says sometimes a nurse named Marion Cock came to.
So, yeah, I mean, we'd have to do some more research on that. Yeah, remember, I didn't know this was coming. um, I mean, the side effects of prescription medication. It depends what you're taking, doesn't it, guys? Many of us have took strong medications. Many of you still do. Not just painkillers, antidepressants, anti-anxiety, obviously sleeping tablets, pain tablets, Let's keep going.
Give Elvis medication, even though Nurse Tish lived on the property. Ginger learned after Elvis's passing that Marion was a private duty nurse connected to Dr. Nick. And Dr. Nick also visited to check on Elvis and sometimes gave him medication.
So I am going to do a topic on Dr. Nick. We're going to do a couple of things with Dr. Nick. That's coming soon, guys.
She says occasionally the doctor disagreed about what Elvis should take, and there were times the doctor refused to give him more, something Ginger supported. Ginger says, quote, I continue to wonder how, with nurses and Dr. Nicopolis tending to him both at home and on tour, Elvis had gotten to a point in his life where he was so dependent on the sleep medication. She says she saw one
Don't forget, he literally couldn't sleep, and he's had this his whole life. Yeah.
time Elvis forget to take his sleep packet, and he indeed fell asleep. She would have liked his doctors to have done an experiment and refused to give him sleep packets for 1 or 2 nights, and that she would have helped him. If they ever did that, though, she never witnessed it.
I wish they had.
Ginger says, quote, Dr. Nicopolis seemed to be trying to manage the situation rather than create a final confrontation or intervention. Ginger
Yeah. So, I mean, I've always said this. He had an impossible task, Dr. Nick. It's so complicated. It's so complex. We will relook at things. We have got the book Destined to Die Young. We've got Dr. Forrest Tennant's book as well. We have covered these topics a few times. The strange medical saga of Elvis Presley. But for now, we're just listening to this girl's review of chapter 22.
says one day Elvis told her Dr. Nick owed him a lot of money, but he didn't elaborate beyond that.
I think it's well known. Elvis had loaned money to Dr. Nick. We'll cover that on a different topic, okay, guys?
She says she wondered if that was why Dr. Nick didn't outright tell Elvis no, and perhaps he was afraid of losing his job as Elvis's personal physician.
You can't ignore that. You can't ignore that. It's possible that that was a factor. But at the same time, I've watched interviews and read things where it's clearly obvious Dr. Nick loved Elvis. Elvis classed Dr. Nick as a good friend. But when money's involved, guys, everything changes, unfortunately.
Ginger says the next tour would start on May 20th in Knoxville, Tennessee, and would end on June 2nd in Mobile, Alabama. Ginger says while traveling in a car from one tour city to another, she began to softly sing along to a song on the radio. Part of the lyrics was, "Make love to me tonight." She says when she sang this part, Elvis tapped her leg and pointed at the driver. She says, quote, apparently he was afraid the driver might overhear me. She became embarrassed and stopped singing. Ginger wondered if Elvis thought the song made her seem improper. She found it ironic because despite his own sexy public image, he was very conservative and protective about how she was perceived.
I love that. I love that. See, that's Elvis. That's Elvis. That sums him up, the kind of person he is. So caring, always cared about others, put others before himself, put others first.
She says he seemed to prefer seeing her as young and innocent, which she truly was, and he held on to that old-fashioned view despite his rock and roll lifestyle. Ginger says, quote,
Well, rock and roll lifestyle. See, isn't this a dilemma? Don't forget Ginger's 20. Yeah? Yes, of course. There was a side to Elvis that was a rock and roll lifestyle. And she met him when he was 41, whatever. Yeah. She was 20. My point I'm trying to say is that just like us, she had read all the tabloids and magazines and news clips, and she had followed some of his career. Yeah. So unfortunately, some of us just are a bit gullible. We just buy into the so I would call it in some ways fake news that Elvis was just about the next, a rock and roll lifestyle, the next woman, prescription medication, call it drugs if you want. There's so much more to Elvis. So much more. I hope and like to think that Ginger started to realize that Elvis wasn't all about the rock and roll lifestyle, meeting another girl and partying, and that there was a massive side of Elvis that was all about a Christian man, a decent man, a caring, sharing man, a man who helped everybody, a man who did so much good for the world, for charity, for friends, for family, for perfect strangers. Yeah. So this whole rock and roll lifestyle, I think that label has been so unfair to Elvis.
Elvis had come of age in the 1950s, and it was now the spring of 1977. I was just out of my teens. Ginger says that although she was a bit of a tomboy, she didn't consider herself a feminist and preferred traditional Southern belle chivalry. Aside from being allowed to wear pants in high school, feminist issues didn't impact her much, and she wasn't focused on politics, nor did Elvis usually discuss them. Ginger says Elvis was still very handsome in his early 40s. She suspected sometimes he was sensitive of his appearance. So I remember Linda Thompson.
I get it. I get it, guys. Come on. Elvis could see that the prescription medication was taking a toll on everything. His puffiness. Obviously, he'd gained some weight. His tummy was a bit extended. He had serious, very serious health problems. Very serious colon problems. We know about the glaucoma, but many other health issues. So I can imagine Elvis in his early 40s being very concerned about his health, like really concerned, like what's going on, what's going wrong, why am I getting so unwell? Wondering about his medication. Is he taking the right medication? Even experimenting to try and help soothe himself, fix himself, ease his pain, get him through the day. We know he was overworked. So he was tired, guys. He was tired. At the end, he was tired.
And in her book, she said that Elvis, when she was with Elvis, he had gotten a very minor facelift, even though she felt that he didn't need it. Anyway, Ginger says,
even that, we'll do a separate topic on that, on different cosmetic surgery things that happen with Elvis. I've heard that he had minor things, small things done, like is it eyelids and slightly with his nose. Is that correct? Tell me if I'm wrong. It's just been mentioned here, a very slight facelift. So I think we need to look at that separately, try and get some evidence to back it up. Because some people say that it's rubbish and he had no cosmetic things. But then I've heard the Memphis Mafia discuss it. Obviously Ginger has now mentioned it there. So I'd like to do a bit of a deep dive into that as a separate topic.
quote, my suspicions that he might feel sensitive about his looks were confirmed when Billy Smith once told me not to ever show Elvis any unflattering photos of himself. I would never do that, but I wondered if he were speaking from experience. Ginger.
But come on, guys, don't we all feel that way? I do think that, from what we've read, there was a bit of paranoia concerning getting older, becoming 40. I do think that Elvis may have struggled a bit turning 40, don't we all? Don't we all, when we start, especially if we have health problems, if we start to change how we look? Well, I'm just thinking out loud, guys.
It says late one night, Elvis went to her house and he walked straight to Rosemary's room saying, let's get Rosemary up. He flipped on her lights and sat on her bed. Rosemary woke up and Elvis began talking to her, then lay down on his stomach and asked Ginger to rub his back. That's when he saw a stack of records on the floor and started perusing them. He stopped.
Well, this is interesting. I don't remember this bit. Let's keep going.
Stopped when he saw his own record, Elvis, the Sun Sessions. The cover was a picture of a young Elvis, and she wondered what was going through Elvis's mind as he stared at it. He said, I like that. Then he put the record back. Ginger says to her, Elvis didn't look drastically different now than when he was in his early 20s. But she was still in disbelief that she was now with the man on the cover of that record. Ginger said,
come on, wouldn't we all feel that way? Let's get real. Come on, girls. You girls out there, And wouldn't you also feel that way?
His quote, it was almost as if there were three different men. That young Elvis on the album cover, the movie star Elvis who done all of those films, and now the serious, spiritually curious adult Elvis who was here on my sister's bed sharing his life with me.
I think that sums it up quite well.
Ginger says Elvis was acutely aware he was aging, though. One time after a show, he told her, everyone wants to see the old Elvis, meaning the young Elvis. But Ginger says Elvis believed his voice was stronger than ever, and she agreed, feeling it had grown richer from his earlier recordings, and it was now at its peak. Ginger
Oh, I agree with that. I do agree. Elvis's voice evolved beautifully, beautifully. His voice, wow. I wouldn't say it peaked though, because there was more to come. I think Elvis's voice was going to get better and better and better. He really was honing that ability and gift. So, well said.
says she never knew whether Elvis would introduce her during his shows, even though he knew she was shy and he enjoyed teasing her about it. She usually sat
We've all seen it, haven't we, guys, on YouTube? Elvis introduces her. She does look shy.
behind the soundman, but once when she was seated farther away, Elvis called her up on stage, and after she made the long walk and reached the top of the steps to the stage, he told her to sit back down. And she says the crowd thought it was really funny. She says later in their hotel room, she tickled him to get back at him, and she was delighted to learn he was ticklish, and she loved to hear him laugh.
I love that. Girls, Elvis was ticklish. Would you like to tickle Elvis?
Ginger says it was about a week after the tour started when they were at a stop in Binghamton, New York. She realized that she had been so focused on Elvis that she kind of lost her own needs and sense of identity. She wanted to be with Elvis, but she hoped to integrate some of her own interests and hobbies, like art, into their world together. She was also distraught about her parents separating, even though she knew it would be better for them to be apart.
I think, do you know what? I think this is quite a common thing with Elvis's girlfriends. They jump in head first. Elvis, 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 everything Elvis. But then they start to sort of think, they miss their own lives. I think they start to want to do their own thing. I think this is a bit of a pattern. Let's keep going.
Ginger says, quote, that particular night in Binghamton, I experienced a complex convergence of emotions brought on by my own feelings of loss, coupled with my ongoing anxiety about Elvis's dependency on sleep medication and the effects the drugs seem to sometimes have on his personality.
Come on, guys. We know we have to accept that sleep medication was a serious problem. But of course, Elvis couldn't sleep, was overworked, in pain, in discomfort. I get it. A lot of mornings. And come on, we know that the prescription medication was a bit of a mess, out of control. We know that Elvis was overprescribed. Yeah. But I still, as a defender of Elvis, I always say he just wanted to get better. He just wanted to sleep. Stop being in pain and discomfort. He wanted to try and fix the stomach issues. I feel Elvis was very desperate. Yeah. Just come on, what do you do, guys, when you're almost in fear of your own life? Yeah. And he wants to get through the day. He's overworked, massively overworked. So he struggled. Yeah. He was desperate. That's how I see it concerning his health, sleeping, pain, all that kind of stuff.
Ginger wanted to help him so badly, and now with all these emotions becoming overwhelming, she broke down and cried. Ginger says when Elvis saw her tears, he said, "You're not happy with me." Ginger told him she loved him, and it wasn't that she wasn't happy with him. She was upset about her parents and that it was a mixture of other things. Then, being in such a vulnerable state, she told him, quote, I also worry about you and your medication sometimes. She says Elvis didn't say anything at first, and she knew he didn't like people confronting him about his, quote, habits.
Yeah. I mean, if you're around it, aren't you? You're living it. Of course, I think everyone around Elvis, literally everyone, uh, were worried and found it awkward to approach Elvis. 'Cause obviously he would become defensive, maybe even lose his temper. Yeah, yeah. Um, it's not nice, is it, guys? When you think about it, everyone loved Elvis, wanted to help him. Um, I think, with people that were overprescribed, if they're a bit, there is some, I would say, some denial there. Um, I do think it must be really hard to talk to Elvis, not just Ginger, but everyone, unless you caught him in the right mood. Yeah. A lot of people say, these people that have prescription medication problems have to help themselves as well. Um, but, then you throw in the pain, the lack of sleep, overworked. Of course, Elvis was insecure, but going into his 40s. He was tired, guys. He was tired. This is a tough chapter, actually. I wasn't expecting all this.
Knew this, but was still utterly shocked at what he said next. Quote, I think you should go home for a few days. Ginger felt hurt and thought it was
See, I don't know about this. This is new to me. I don't remember reading this. Let's keep going.
unfair since she had only been trying to share her feelings honestly. She didn't want to leave at first, but she eventually decided Elvis might be right and that going home to rest and clear her mind could help. She says he picked up a tour schedule and wrote, Come back here on it with an arrow pointing to Baltimore, Maryland. Ginger flew home, still unsure if she made the right decision to leave. She says, now I was embarrassed as well. What would those around Elvis think about me leaving so abruptly? That's got to be hard. You're a young woman with not very much life experiences, and now you're with this super complex, deeply emotionally complicated megastar. When Ginger got home,
I think that's about right.
she told her family she was just taking a little break to rest and that she'd be going back on tour soon. She says now that she was away from the hustle and bustle of the tour, she could sort out her emotions. She realized that while Elvis didn't always focus on her personal interests, he had been compassionate and proactive when she talked about her family's struggles. She thought about all of his responsibilities and felt guilty for not handling things better. And she hoped he understood that she brought up his medication only because she deeply cared about him. Ginger says she didn't hear from Elvis for 2 days.
So, yeah, what would you have done, guys? Let's interact here. As Team Elvis, Elvis defenders, we love Elvis, don't we? We hate to hear anything negative about him. We hate to hear graphic details about him that don't portray him in a good light. I'm very defensive. I'm very protective of Elvis. But we also must analyze and try and understand what was happening during the time Ginger was with Elvis. It's obvious he loved her. But even that is complicated. Yeah, because we hear other versions of things, don't we? Yeah. What would you have done, guys? What could you have done? Would Elvis have listened? Was Elvis prepared to listen? So there's so many questions, but put it in the comments. What would you have done? Honestly, as someone who absolutely adores and loves Elvis, the bottom of my heart, as you do, as we do, Team Elvis, Elvis Defenders, what would you do?
And began to wonder if their relationship was over, and she was miserable. Elvis called her on the third day, telling her he missed her and wanted her back on the tour. She was thrilled, and she told him she missed him too.
So that tells you she loved him, didn't she? She was gutted. She felt she'd lost him, missed him.
And he made arrangements for her to return right away. So, do you think?
So, he must have missed her. Like, I've seen some old footage of Ginger, not just at the concerts, behind the scenes, yeah. It's all there on YouTube. If you look for it, I mean, she's beautiful. She's stunning.
I think Elvis had another woman on. Like, did he bring another woman in Ginger's absence?
So this is keeps coming up, doesn't it? Yeah, there's a few names mentioned. I think Alicia Kerwin is one of the names brought up. You put it in the comments. Was there other women? Let me know, guys. What do you think? I wasn't there. I'm no expert. There are different versions of things. I definitely don't want to upset Ginger because Ginger supports what we do at Team Elvis. She talks to me every now and then. We have a little quick chat. I think she's adorable. I love Ginger. Yeah, I support her. But this is complicated. This is like we weren't there. So what do you think, guys? So this is much more this is much more complex than I thought. Okay, guys. I wanna come back and do part 2. We're 10 minutes in. There's another 10 minutes. I just want to think about this and come back and do a part 2. Plus the kids are about to come down. I've got to make them pack lunch. So very, very interesting, fascinating, a bit heartbreaking. There are many things brought up concerning prescription medication, Elvis's health, how Elvis felt about getting into his 40s and how his appearance and girlfriend, possible girlfriends, overwork type stuff. Dr. Nick, there's so many things being brought up here. So I want to come back and do a part 2. So take care, guys. Love you all, and we'll be back. That was very interesting. Thank you to the young lady, Elvis and Ginger Review, Chapter 22. What now next? Please subscribe to that. See you guys.